The Curious Case of a Farting Granny. A story over My Pillow original. Mom was reading the morning tea for everyone. Dave, here, go give Granny her morning tea. She is in her room. Anak waltzed into the kitchen. Mom, Dave was telling me Granny grew into an air balloon last night and flew out of the window. She was sitting atop a tree when Daddy saw her while brushing his teeth in the morning and brought her back inside. What nonsense, said Mom, peeking over her newspaper. Dave was hearing the conversation from the dining hall, licking the leftover Bonvita from his milk glass. That is true, he said. Every word that I told you. Granny farts so much, doesn't she? And when she doesn't, she's accumulating the gas in her tummy so she could fly away through the window at night. Dave said, rolling his eyes to Anak, who was listening to his older brother with great curiosity. Oh dear, said Mommy. Your granny is old and feels bloated at times. That is it. Well, I would leave that peg you put on clothes on the drying line to clip my nose with. Granny's room stinks too much due to her farts. Dave threw a tantrum. Dave, she's old, that is it. Go and give her the tea, would you now, said Mommy. Granny was hearing Dave's conversation from her room. She laughed and giggled and decided to play a prank on him. In the night, when Mother asked Dave to hand over Granny a glass of milk, Granny hid behind the door and turned the room's dim lights on. She had asked the family servant to fetch the biggest balloon in the market and kept the windows open, placing the big balloon on the bed. When Dave entered the room with the peg clipping his nose, he saw the balloon stirring on the bed in place of Granny. For a moment he thought maybe what he said about Granny to his brother could be true. He was a 9-year-old boy after all, full of curiosity himself. And then he saw the balloon drifting out of the window gradually and perch on the highest branch of the tree outside. Even the tree house Dave and Anak had built so fondly, standing on a makeshift scaffolding, sat a few notches below that branch. Dave ran outside Granny's room in terror, spilling the milk in the corridor, and covered his face with a quilt in his room. He waited for the morning to go back in Granny's room and check if she's there. And then, when he finally saw the sun peeking over his windowsill, he ran into his Granny's room. And what did he see? Granny wasn't there still. And even the balloon he saw last night has disappeared from the branch. As he turned to run, he bumped into his mother, holding the morning tea for Granny in a tray. By golly, how forgetful I have become these days. Did I leave the windows open last night? I sure must have. Granny isn't in her room. She must have climbed that silly branch again, Mom said. I hope she climbs down safely without hurting herself. No way, said Dave. Dave, I know I have been telling you it's a joke and all, but Granny actually turns into a tight, round balloon and drifts out of the window to sit on that branch right above the tree house. It was her unfulfilled childhood dream of climbing trees that didn't come true, for she had a knee injury. But, oh dear! Mom stopped short in her tracks. That branch is empty. Where did she go then? Exclaimed Dave's mother. I hope she hasn't landed in Mr. Kurana's swimming pool in his backyard, right behind the tree. And oh, his daughter is such a troublemaker. What if she had popped the balloon with her fork while having dinner? Dave was just beginning to get terrified with his mom's fast-changing expressions when he heard a knock on the door. Hello! Somebody please take me inside, for God's sake. Oh, I'm forming a puddle at the doorstep. Can't even walk properly with that wet gown of mine. That was Granny, muttering things audibly well to herself. as Dave opened the door. "There was this crazy wind that pushed me into the neighbor's pool last night. How happy and light I had felt sitting atop that tree branch. I could even see the ancient house of my late aunt in the market lane." She continued her self-talk, water dropping from her gown and making a trail all along till the staircase. Dave was listening to his granny in utmost shock and fear. He did not believe in magic. Well, he was not supposed to, as he was 9 now. Boys at 9 do all things that boys of 5 or 7 look at with awe and respect. And this was certainly not one of those things. But Granny sounded so true. He could hardly help his shock from appearing on his cheeks as they turned pink. "Granny," Dave called from behind. "Did you really turn into a balloon last night?" "Oh, how come you're up so early, my child? Now that you know my weird secret." "Yes, that's true. I'm old and feel bloated at times. And I think instead of letting out those smelly farts which bother my children so much, why not gather all that air inside and rather turn into a balloon? I do have fear of bursting and all, but..." Looking at the stunned face of Dave, Granny stopped short of her sentence and burst into a roaring laughter, way louder than her farts. And to join her was Dave's mom, Nandu Bhaiya, the family servant, and Dave's little brother, Anak. "What's so funny in here?" said a puzzled Dave. "The balloon that you saw yesterday was really an actual, like a true balloon," said Mom, still giggling. It was then that Dave got the joke. He was superiorly embarrassed, for he knew now that the habit of playing pranks on people all the time can sometimes become too much to handle.